Welcome back. This is the Hot Breath Podcast, the show where you learn comedy from the pros. I'm your host, comedian Joel Byers, and this is our series, Comedians on Skype Talking Comedy. This is the show where you get to ask your favorite comedians your favorite comedy questions. So if you want to get involved in these in the future, you've got to join our Facebook group. It's going to be linked in the show notes and the description of this YouTube video for you to join us, connect with comics from around the world, including comics at the caliber of today's guest, who needs no introduction, one of my favorite comedians, an absolute legend in this game. Please bring a round of applause for the one and only Jimmy Shubert, hot brethren and sister, and give it up for Jimmy Shubert.
Oh, what's up, man? There you go. What's up, buddy? I figured I'd walk in. I was getting another cup of coffee. Sorry, man.
No, you go get your coffee if you need. I know at your age, I figured you had gone down for a nap for a second. Yeah.
No, I'm good, man. I'm totally good. I was just grabbing another cup of coffee. I figured that we could have some coffee and chat, see how things are going. Where are you out of? Where are you living right now?
I'm in Atlanta.
How is it down there with the COVID-19? You guys are opening back up.
That's what it sounds like. Yeah, my wife and I have been staying quarantined. We haven't really been going anywhere, but apparently we're opening up tattoo parlors and I guess salons and all that. But I haven't really. I've been trying to stay busy instead of worried. I don't really stay too woke at this current time because it seems like a lot of negativity.
Yeah, first off, I think they politicized the virus. They asked us to stay home, and we did that, and we flattened the curve, and now I think it's time to get back to. I think New York and all along the Excelsior Corridor there, where the Amtrak train runs, which is how that disease kind of spread and hit those, Boston, Philly, New York, Washington D.C. I think as you went further west, the numbers dissipated. I don't think they thought it was going to be nearly as bad as it was. And once you got west of, out west, people just aren't on top of each other. The weather was nicer out here. It was a lot warmer. So I don't think we saw the numbers. I mean, I think we have 2,500 cases in all of California.
Wow.
I mean, it was, yeah. I mean, it was, so the numbers are, I mean, and these people want us to stay home for another 3 months. I think it's ridiculous. I think people are just going to go, you know what? F you. I'm going back to work. I don't want I don't want my friends' businesses to fail, and I don't want places like the Magic Castle or the Comedy Store or the Improv. I don't want any of these places to go under. So I think I'm hoping that we get back sooner rather than later. But yeah. You guys are at least open.
Yeah, and but I still have, I had probably 3 months of work, 3 months of shows just evaporate into thin air. Like, what about you?
Everybody did.
Yeah.
Everybody did. I mean, everybody did. Unfortunately, that's the way it goes. And I got a couple shows coming up. On June 18th to the 21st, I'm going to be in Phoenix at the House of Comedy. But that's a room that seats 250, and they're only selling 75 tickets a show. And then you have Rochester, New York, which is June 4th, 5th, and 6th. I'm going to be out there. I'm going to be doing on stage doing a parking lot show. Like the cars are just going to come in, park right across the street from the club. And they build a big stage, which they moved outside. And I'm going to be doing comedy like that. I mean, obviously, and I hate the word new normal. I fucking think it's ridiculous. I think they've successfully accomplished their goals, which is they want to make everybody afraid of each other. They don't want people associating. They want us talking. They've successfully accomplished their goal, which was to scare the shit out of everybody, because then it's easier to control. I don't think you're going to get this virus. I don't think you're going to see the W curve, which everybody keeps talking about. I just don't think the numbers are there. And according to Johns Hopkins University, America was most prepared for this virus. We handled it. Our numbers are much lower. It's like a 96% survival rate. I mean, a lot of people that died had pre-existing conditions, they probably were going to die anyway of some shit. So, I mean, I'm not being callous here, but I mean, because I know a lot of people lost people they care about, and a lot of people did die. But Jesus, I mean, it's time for us to get back to work. I think we'll see. You know, I mean, at least we know what hydroxychloroquine, azithromycin, and zinc treatments work.
I'm sorry.
You know,
I only laugh because like we're all doctors now. Like we can hear these
yeah,
fancy words.
I know I've become an expert. Well, you know, the thing is, I mean, everybody wants to educate themselves.
Yeah.
And you know what's funny? I was supposed to go to. I went to India with Russell Peters in October. And on that trip, we were supposed to go to Nigeria and Kuwait, but we never went to Nigeria. But in order to go to Nigeria, the doctor had to prescribe me. She gave me 3 shots. One was a pneumonia shot and something else. And then I had to get hydroxychloroquine, which is the malaria medication. She gave me azithromycin, which is a Z-Pack. And, of course, I have zinc because I take my vitamins. But I actually have it sitting in my cabinet. The hydroxychloroquine is azithromycin. So if anything happens, bro, I'm ready.
I was gonna say you could sell it as merch. Yeah, go ahead. You could sell it at merch at your shows.
Yeah, the street value on that.
So people watching, go ahead and comment with your questions. Thank you for tuning in here. I'm gonna ask Jimmy a few more questions, and then we're gonna get to yours here.
Yeah. So, yeah, well, you know, you want to educate yourself, and you're right. Like, because the media in this country is useless. Going around since the 1950s. It's $6 a pill. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So,
but they want you taking it for Setivan, this $1,000. Yeah.
Luckily, like we were talking about a lot of shows getting canceled, but now a lot of comedians are trying to figure out other ways to find that income when there isn't that stage. And luckily you have a special and now an album out that hopefully, I mean, it's seemingly, you know, I just independently released my own special and it seems to be doing well based on people just seeking out content. How have you seen the numbers affected by the quarantine?
I mean, my album went to _1. You know, my special's been out for a year, and we've been steadily selling. You know, but I mean, because my album went to #1, I noticed that people are rebuying or buying in my special. So numbers are good.
Yeah, yeah. And you went.
I mean, I shot the.
What we talked about. This is interesting because you self-produced and self-released it, which is something we talked about. Mark Normand on here, who no one would pick up his special, so he just threw it on YouTube. And it seems a lot of people are doing that, but then someone like you, Doug Stanhope, went the Vimeo route as well. I'm selling it through my website, so I'm hoping maybe that's the next wave of specials to where we're not throwing it out.
Yeah, well, the Vimeo route, and let me tell you why, because it's a 90-10 split.
Nice.
If you put it on iTunes takes 30% right off the top. You know, I heard a lot of, well, if you were a minority, we would have bought your special. I said, well, I'm not a minority. And that's a really horrible thing to say to me because, you know, I go, well, you know, did you watch the special? And they said, yeah, we watched a couple minutes. So I said, and, you know, I ran into this time and time again. And also like comedy dynamics. I mean, here's why, you know, I asked, they said, we love your special. We want it. I said, what's the offer? And they said, well, if you pay the $3,000 errors and omissions insurance, it's called E&O insurance, because in case somebody sues you for something you say, you're covered. They said they wanted me to pay the $3,000 errors and omissions insurance, and then they said they would throw it on the Roku channel and take 50%. That was their offer. And I said, wow, you guys are, you guys are really, you would do that for me? Well, that's awful nice of you. You know, but these people they're useless, and they know they're useless. And in this day and age with social media and all these opportunities to, release and promote your specials, you don't need any of these people, and you own it. See, you own it. See, that's the other thing. If I had sold it to any of these companies, they would have ripped the audio off. They would have released the audio and stole my ability to promote myself on my schedule and the way I wanted to do it. And so I'm just, number one, it was insulting. They try to squeeze me for 3,000. I know they have the errors and omissions insurance already because they have a company that produces comedy albums. So in order for them to be in that business, they would have to have the insurance anyway. So they were trying to squeeze me for $3,000. So they insulted my intelligence, number one. And then number two, why would I give you 50%? I mean, I spent a lot of my own money producing this. Why would I give it to you? Why would I give you 50%? What are you bringing to the table? I mean, my record distributor, Stand Up Records, they have a Roku channel. You can watch it on their Roku channel. Why would I give it? And, you don't need these people, anymore. And that's why you see Mark Norman, who's a great comic, and he released his, and Sam Morrill out of New York did the same thing. And a lot of these people are doing it, and it's empowering, the performers,
How does that feel, though? Like a comedian who's been in the game over 30 years like you and done so much. I mean, how does it feel to still be trying to get squeezed out of like a little $3,000 at this point in your career?
Well, that's just the way it is.
It's how the business is.
I mean, if you watch that movie Ray, about Ray Charles. I mean, Ray Charles owned all his originals. He owned all the originals. You should own your stuff. It's funny because I talked to my record distributor, Dan Schlissel, at Stand Up Records, who was my partner in producing this album and the special. He said, Jimmy, you'd be surprised at how many people jump at that deal all day long. And look, I know every morning radio show in the country. I've worked with them for years. These guys are friends of mine. Some of these guys, they help me promote it. All I got to do is call them. Yeah, we'll have you on. We'll have you on. So I have access to that network. I have access to social media. I have access to, as long as you're doing your social media and promoting it on podcasts like this, you don't need any of these people. And so, on Vimeo, the deal is it's a 90-10 split. So I get to keep 90% of the money and they take 10. And there's also a rent option on my special and there's a buy option. The rent option is $3.99. You could rent my hour special for 4 hours, which is less than a cup of coffee. You can own it and it'll live on your Vimeo account for $9.99, which is less than $10. And the album's right there as well. I mean, they're pretty good price points in this economy. So, and the album, this is my favorite album. This is my best album I've ever put out. Zero Tolerance. It's the funniest album. And because I'm still excited about making people laugh. I love what it is that I do. So.
And I just listened to it on the way home today to get back for this, because I did go visit family in Tennessee and had to get back so we could do this, because I was so excited about this and getting to listen to it. What I learned from listening to this, and I had seen you live once. This was the first time I was aware of you, but I'd never seen you perform live. And I was working the Atlanta Punchline. Maybe Chris Redd was the headliner that weekend. I don't remember, but I remember we were in the green room and you came in, and you were super nice, and you almost asked for if it was okay if you did a guest spot, as if you were you were very just humble. I think you went under your time, and that was a moment in my career where I was like, if someone at his level is still treating comedy with that respect, to where you're not coming in with any assumptions, you're not blowing the light. I'm pretty sure you went under time, actually. That really resonated and affected me.
Well, you always respect. I mean, it's obviously I was doing a guest set on another guy's show. I wanted to, that's just a respect thing, because if someone came onto my show, I want them to handle it the same way. Go under the time, don't push the light. I think that's just it's a respect thing, because I respected the headliner as well. I'm not going to make any assumptions, even though it's like if someone came to me and asked me like that, I would absolutely let them do a guest set. But it's the same way with selling merch. If someone says, "Hey, do you mind if I sell?" If you ask me, and you have then I have no problem with it. It's just if you make assumptions and think, it's just it's just a respect thing. I mean, so
yeah. What are
Go ahead.
No, please keep going. No. Follow that thought.
No, I just said it's just the way I was raised. I started at the Comedy Store in Los Angeles, so I mean, everybody was a big name out there. Pryor, Carlin. So there was always a respect factor.
Yeah, I mean, you got to. Well, there's so many things. There's so many things you got to do, but the first one we can touch on is like you got to work the door and watch people like Carlin and Robin Williams, and you got to see Jim Carrey before he was Jim Carrey, and Roseanne before she was Roseanne, and maybe make out with her at one point. But that's all, that's all under the rug right now, and we're talking about comedy, and got to become close friends with Mitzi as well.
It was a better time to do comedy. It was a better time as far as political correctness.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't this whole cancel culture. And the thing I love about this quarantine, with these fucking douchebags, this cancel culture movement, like the universe just went, hey, cancel culture, hold my fucking beer. And they canceled everything. And how the fuck do you like it? How do you like not being able to make a living? How do you like not being able to go anywhere? How do you fucking like it? It's no fun, is it? So I think when we come out of this quarantine, I think people may be a little more, and maybe they won't be because they're fucking douchebags and that's just the fucking way it is. But I think people be a little bit like, this thing has a way of putting things in perspective. I think hard reset button for humanity, period.
What did you learn? Because you were around the Comedy Store, like us comedians coming up now. Like this is like the folklore of comedy. You know what I mean? Like the Comedy Store house and people like the razor blades in the Comedy Store green room from like the partying. It's like we hear these as folklore, but you lived it.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
you survived it.
Me and Mark were like doormen together,
mm-hmm.
and we lived in Crest Hill together, which was the house. And it's every bit as notorious. I mean, I'm outlining a book that I will absolutely tell these stories in a book.
Right.
But yeah, it was legendary. It was crazy. It was a completely different time in the history of what it was. It was it was a wave. It was like a wave. Everybody was just popping off. Arsenio was there, and Dice and Sam and Pop. These guys were just blowing up. I mean, Gary Shandling was coming in. Louis Anderson was there. I mean, guys like Harry Basil, and there was just like a who's who. I mean, it really was like my college as far as I'm concerned. But, boy, and I partied about as much as I did in college when I was at the Comedy Store. But I'll never forget it. It was a great era. And I learned so much by watching some of the best comedians in the country, Paul Mooney and it was just a cavalcade of, you got to watch Pryor come in and build an hour and watch his process. And, Rob Williams would come in, and it was just like a fucking circus, man. It was fun to be a part of. And some of my best friends I made there, and I'm still friends with today. I mean, so yeah, I don't regret it at all. But I definitely think it's worthy of a book.
For sure. Oh my, yeah. In researching you there, yeah, you've divulged some of the stories, but I can't wait to hear even more in the book. Like, what are some of the things you learned from like the comedy side? Getting to be around the pretty much like the 1% in comedy, but then also getting to observe and watch. Like, what are some things that you learned? Because you're 18 years old, getting around all of this.
Yeah, well, I was, always work to the top of your intelligence was one of the things. I mean, there's different kinds of laughs. Like you go up and talk about fucking corn in your shit. And then, and everybody can make that funny, of course, but those aren't the kind of laughs you want. You want better laughs than that. And you only acquire that by, and it took me a long time to get good at it. Believe me, it took me like 9 years to get to a point where I thought I was funny enough to like headline rooms. I didn't find my voice until after, I left Los Angeles after Kinnison died, and I just wanted to start over. And so I went to Florida and kind of started working as a house MC, and I was doing comedy 6 nights a week. But I had this foundation of knowledge about what to do and what not to do. And so it really, it helped me find my voice. I didn't find my voice till I was about 9 or 10 years. And it was only by doing it every single night of the week, 6 nights a week, like 45 minutes a night on stage. That's when I really kind of found my voice. And because I have a passion for this, I love to do it. It's just gotten better over time. There's nothing I love more than creating a nice piece of comedy that makes people laugh. Like that still turns me on. It's still why I do it. Whereas before I used to party a little bit, and now the party is what you get to create and put on stage.
Yeah, and you really are a craftsman. And one of my favorite lines from your new album, Zero Tolerance, which is available. I believe I got it on iTunes, but I think it's available.
Yeah, it's available
on
on iTunes
all of them.
and Amazon.
Yeah, and Amazon.
And
yeah,
all other digital platforms. So
yeah, you've got to check this out, because this is a comedian 30 years in at the top of the game. And like what I love when you talk about you like crafting a joke. Two things I noticed from listening to you that I'd like to maybe individually get into, but one is like your enunciation on stage. You are very particular, and you're making sure people understand what you are saying, and also your word choice. It seems like you have a very clever and specific way. Like a line that stuck out was you talking about the self-checkout, and I'll just ladle the hot liquid into my hand and I'll lick it off my blistered. Like you could have just said, yeah, I'll just pour it in my hand and then I'll just drink it out. But you're like, ladle the hot liquid, blistered hands. Like you seem to be very specific in the wording.
Well, because you're painting pictures with words. You're painting pictures with words. You're creating this visual image in people's heads. And especially on an album, that really creates a visual image in people's minds. And God's in the details. I think the more specific you can get, the funnier it's going to be. Carlin is obviously, George Carlin's one of my heroes. I love George Carlin. I love the way he played with language. I love the way he pulled it apart and put it back together again. And that's really like the kind of things you got in your toolbox. You got phraseology. You got wording. How can I put a whole paragraph in one sentence? How can I? It's word efficiency as well. And I like having my own vernacular. There's a lot of words on there that you kind of make up words because you find laughter in places where there wouldn't be laughs normally. You know what I mean? There's funny things you say in the setups. I just like that. I like peppering and layering a bit. I like it to be layered because the jokes are happening on a couple different levels. There's, what you're trying to say overall with a piece like this. And then, I like to theme my hour. I like a theme to run through the album. That's just, almost like a one-man show. I want to, and so it takes me, it takes about 2 years to get to where you have a solid fucking hour that works like that. And then, the album is different from the special. So there's a couple different things that are on the CD that are not in the special, and vice versa. Because I want to do it like that. I want there always to be a little something extra on them,
And how? Let's go back to you saying, how can I put a whole paragraph into one sentence? Like, can you break that down for us? Are you going pen to paper, writing out the entire paragraph, and then going back and editing out unnecessary words? How do you condense that?
Well, everything starts out as a first off, I find something that irritates the fuck out of me.
Okay.
I find something that I really am genuinely frustrated about, whether it's dealing with the TSA or dealing with the certain things in life that you do that just seem ridiculous now. I'm going to have a field day with this whole lockdown and COVID-19 when we come out. I got about 30 new minutes that I can't wait to get on stage to try. But it starts with where the frustration is real. So when I speak about something, there's an authenticity to it that that's not faked. So when I'm genuinely fucking angry about something, I'm genuine about it. And I'm a ranter. You have to balance a rant with just the right amount of rage, but also it has to be identifiable and accessible to people in the audience. They go, yeah, Like you can't be you can just, and then at the end you kind of pull back and laugh at yourself, letting people in on a joke that you know that you're not really that fucking angry about it. So it's this little dynamic with it, and then also it's like I overwrite, and then I scale back.
Okay.
And then I always go, give me 20 facts, I'll give you 20 jokes. Give me 20 facts, I'll give you 20 jokes. So let's say you're talking about something, and then I go down a rabbit hole on internet searches, and I try to find all the information about what I'm talking about. So when I discuss something, I want to know where I can go with it. So I can go, and not only that, because in the middle of it, if someone says something, I can also come off with a fact that'll blow them away. Like right now on eBay, there are 24,000 listings for therapy animal certifications, vests, leases, badges. So most of these animals are not therapy animals. Essentially, what the airlines did is they were charging people $75 for them to bring their animals on the airplane or fly on the airplane. And so they wouldn't charge you if it was a therapy fucking animal. But I got to be honest with you, it's fucking ridiculous. I fly all the time. It's bad enough I got to go to fucking Cleveland. I'm not bringing the fucking tiny pony with me because that's just fucking obnoxious. But so I just like to research and have, but by going and doing the research and printing up some stuff, then you highlight some of the points and then you just start to gather it. And then once you got it, because it really almost starts out as a lecture. And then I just kind of go and I go, this could be funnier here, and this could be funnier here, and this could be, and then I try to insert and find these places where I can insert these jokes. So, it's really just kind of a one-way conversation you're having with the audience. But I want to know what I'm talking about. I don't want to just go up there making shit up. I think, because people always go, that's fucking hilarious, and it's true, I want there to be that kind of foundation. And then, of course, one of the comedy formulas that I use quite successfully is the over-exaggeration. Mm-hmm. That's a comedy thing. Brian Regan does that in a way as well. I mean, if you know what your comedy formulas are, that's one that the over-exaggeration of it becomes ridiculously funny. But yeah, it's and I like great references. I like, like you said, I like painting pictures with words. I like, and find that stuff. And obviously, I think most of the work I do is off stage in the writing. Mm-hmm. And because I've been doing this for 30 years, I know who I am. I know how to make something funny. I know how to make. I know how to make it funny, but I know how to make it funny to fit me.
Yeah, and
here's a great.
Yeah, please go ahead. Please.
No, go ahead. You go first.
Good. Well, I was just thinking about your specific writing, and that you're still mindful of how valuable that is, because a lot of comics think they can get away with just having attitude up there, but there's gotta be that structure behind it, and I'm glad you're showing us that. Well,
the funny thing is, anybody, it's just fucking lazy.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's fucking lazy.
Yeah.
If you're doing, look, I know some guys do crowd work great. Some guys are really great at it. But I also think that that's not the audience's job. The audience's job is to sit back and laugh, and you want them to know they're in the hands of a capable professional. It's also what you're talking about. There's so many fucking things in the world to talk about, and you want to go talk about a fucking Tinder date or something. Nobody gives a fuck. Nobody gives a fuck. People just don't care. They want to laugh, and they want it to be accessible to them. Stand-up comedy is really like an everyman's art form. You know what I mean? They have to feel like you're one of them, And so you have to be accessible. I almost arrive at the punchline just a few seconds before the audience does. They're going, yeah, I was thinking that too. I just said that the other day. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. Look, there's so many levels. If you're talking about this, like there's so much nonverbal communication that goes on. Like, what you wear says so much about you before you even fucking open your mouth. So what you wear on stage should say what you're trying to say before you fucking say it. If you'll notice, Doug Stanhope wears the same thing. Andrew Dice Clay wears the same thing. Sam Kinison, also like a human fucking cartoon, I mean, some guys, it's almost like it's just kind of, you wanted to say what you want to say before you open your mouth,
Boom. Yeah. Did you just?
I mean, there's little things. There's all this stuff that you would learn after you've been doing it fucking 30 years. But, I don't want to. Yeah, it's a. Listen, I love doing it still. To me, I've had an amazing life, and I'm not bitter, and I'm not jaded, and I don't think the fucking world owes me anything. And if I'm able to make a living doing something I love to do, then I'm fucking way ahead of the fucking curve anyway.
Yeah.
I've had a blast. I've been all over the world. I've been to China, Singapore, Macau. I've been to, Ireland and Israel and Dubai and just doing shows for expat communities, or also doing shows for the military, Armed Forces Entertainment, Department of Defense. I mean, I went to Afghanistan. A memory just popped up in my Facebook feed with Drew Carey and Steve Byrne and Pedro Hernandez and Dave Mordal. We went over there and did a bunch of shows, a really aggressive kind of 11-day tour of Afghanistan where we did all these forward operating bases. I've also been to Armed Forces Entertainment where we went to Cuba, Guantanamo Bay, and Andros Island, and El Salvador, and Honduras. And you get to, and the great thing is I get the travel experience, which I think is amazing. My passport stamp looks like I'm an international spy,
So does that hat.
So, yeah, well, I don't know. I'm getting to that point. I could wear hats now and pull it off.
Oh, you're good. Wait, you performed at Guantanamo Bay?
Yeah.
What was that like? And I'm going to go get a hat as well. I want to match you. So
Nice.
Please let them know what it was about. I'll be right back.
All right. Well, Guantanamo Bay was pretty awesome, but you have to do this you can come flying in on this really small airplane, and you got to do this like pinwheel turn, and by doing this pinwheel turn, it's only Guantanamo Air Base that has that, because it's a narrow runway, so you're really got to do this hairpin turn and then come down at this runway at 90-degree angle, which gets a little ridiculous, but yeah, it was cool. It was cool as hell, man. That looks great. Nice.
I thought you would appreciate it.
Yeah, it looks good, man.
There we go. So yeah, we're adding comedy into this as well. That's awesome. So I've never done this in an interview, but I thought I could match the guest as we're getting into the comedy nerddom. Is this offending you, Jimmy?
No, it's not offending me at all.
Okay.
I think it looks great.
Thank you.
It's a good choice for you.
Thank you very much, buddy. So let's get into the viewer questions. Gosh, I love getting to do this and getting to ask comedians like you these. I could talk about this all day, but I want to make sure we get into these questions as well. And just in researching you comics, dive into Jimmy's life if you were not aware of his backstory. But I mean, this guy, he was on the road with Sam Kinison for 5 years. This is a comedy asset that you need to be studying and you need to be learning from as much as possible. So thank you again for taking the time to do this, Jimmy.
Well, my pleasure, man. I always feel obligated to, because a lot of people have helped me over the years, working at the Comedy Store. I think that's the way the art form survives, is if you share your knowledge with people that are trying to come up and help them out a little bit, because it really is an incredibly tough business, so you need all your resources. It's like, I think this quarantine or this thing that we're going through, I think a lot of comics are probably going to get out of the industry just because they're like, fuck, I don't want to, if this is, they may not come back from this. That's number one. And number two is, there may be some people that are not doing in their life what it is they love, and they may try to get into comedy. So, but it's long after I'm gone. I love this art form. I think it's amazing, and I think it's really kind of like the First Amendment right, kind of summed up in like this one occupation, is that you get up there and you get to say whatever it is that you want, but also you realize it comes a tremendous responsibility in being able to present things that, like, you should do it. There's a way to do it. Some people want to be edgy for fucking edgy's sake and talk about, cancer and rape and all that shit. But I got news for you. I think it's fucking ridiculous. I think what you should do first is be able to make a room full of people laugh because you're a fucking comedian. I think you should be able to make them fucking laugh. And a lot of this stuff, I find it to be, a lot of it's a contrived edginess. Like they get off on just being ridiculously fucking, some people do it and they make it look easy. Some people are great at it. But, it's like if you're just starting out and you want to be one of these guys, like it's going to be a lot tougher of a road to do. There's a lot of ways to make a living. You can make a living in comedy clubs. You make a living doing corporate events. You can make a living playing casinos only now because there's a lot of casinos out there. You can make a living doing cruise ships now. And if you think about this, like 30 years ago, there were not any of these avenues to make a living doing this. I mean, this is relatively a new kind of relatively a new situation. I mean, you can make an argument to say it's like the second oldest profession in the world, but this is the way we do comedy in this country. It is a uniquely American art form, like jazz music is a uniquely American art form, and they're both kind of similar. So, I mean, I guess to each his own. It's just, if people want to take that, it just depends. You got to think about the big picture, and you got to run your shit like a business. You got to run your social media like a business. You got to run it like a fucking business. First off, you should have a color scheme. Your color scheme should match your website. It should match your Twitter, your Facebook fan page, and your Instagram page. It should be uniform across the board. You're building a brand. And, this is, like I said before, man, it's an incredibly difficult profession. So a lot of guys try to put the social media cart before the horse. And if, you got to, you got to build the act. You got to find out who you are on stage. So.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of the time, it's all relevant, and that's why I was thinking a lot of comics now more than ever, I feel like, try to kind of microwave the success and focus on the business before they focus on having something to sell.
Yeah, exactly. No, you're absolutely. You can't microwave success. By the way, just so you know, you're gonna fall on your face a bunch of times and figure out. You'll probably do 1,500 things wrong before you figure out what the right thing is. And that's every bit a part of it. That's how you become a fucking amazing fucking headliner. Oh, I don't like the host. I think hosting is the most important job on the show.
I agree.
I think if you're a great host, then you'll be a great feature act. And if you're a great feature act, then you'll be a great headliner. And these are the building blocks that everybody has to go through. You don't just go from freaking, I'm going to go write the headliner. You got to understand, look, the show is the star of the show. I mean, people may like this guy or people like, here's a great example. Like you're sitting there after a show and people come up to you, oh, I loved your joke about that. And it wasn't your joke. It was the feature act's joke. And then someone come on, I love that joke. Go, that wasn't my joke. That was the MC's joke. But what it does is it all runs together. They can't differentiate between the joke the MC did, the joke the feature act did. So I just go, oh, thanks, man. I used to make it like pointed out, but it doesn't make a difference. I just go, thanks. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I don't, because it's lay people don't look at this the way stand-up comedians do. So, I got tired of arguing with people, pointing it out. Yeah. So I just go, thanks a lot, man. Glad you enjoyed it.
All right.
But yeah, some guys look at this as a way to run a bar tab and fuck waitresses. And if that's what you're doing, you should get the fuck out of the business because it's not going to sustain you. It's not going to sustain you. This is a fucking business. I had a booker tell me this one time. He said, it doesn't make a difference. Lots of times it doesn't make a difference how funny you are because he goes, Jimmy, and I'm a booker. I shouldn't be saying that. But there's guys that I can book that will be funny enough that will do the job, but they also won't trash my hotel room. They won't get drunk and try to fuck a waitress. They won't get drunk and try to do this, and they won't trash the hotel room. And everybody go, boy, that was really So sometimes guys just book acts like that because they know they're dependable. But it's you got to be doing this a long time. Look at all the success. Like it takes guys 20 years, 25 years to get successful in this industry, I mean, look, I started with Marin. We were both kids. Mark didn't have success until he got later on in life. Now he's in the David Bowie movie. He was just in the Joker. I mean, he's acting. He's on Glow. Ladies and Wrestlers, Glamorous. I mean, these guys, his podcast. So it took him a long time. It takes him a long time, So you have to embrace that. But, be thinking long term. What's your long term plan? What's your long term goals?
What is success to you?
I'm already successful. I've been in movies. I've had my own Comedy Central special. I'm also smart enough to write and produce my own specials and CDs. I produced every single one of my CDs. And, I got residual money coming from when they play me on the radio, which, is great. It's an alternate stream of income. I've done enough acting work that I have a pension fund and I have insurance through the Screen Actors Guild. I also get paychecks. Like sometimes I go to my mailbox, there'll be $1,500 in there. It's just residuals from stuff I've done.
Awesome.
Right before this pandemic hit, I was over in South Korea from March 2nd to the 9th working on season 2 of a cross-cultural K-drama that's usually popular around the world, but here, not so much. But the show's called Drama World. The first season's actually on Netflix. So I'm over there and worked on it for 5 days and shot season 2, which they paid me enough money that I'm not worried about the pandemic. So, I mean, I have an acting career. I get to go to the Magic Castle. I'm a magician member of the Magic Castle, so I can perform there when I want to. I get to perform at the Comedy Store, the Improv, the Ice House, the Flappers. I mean, look, this is actually the career and life I wanted to have. That I get to I can make a living doing stand-up comedy. I love doing close-up magic. I also like acting, and I get to produce my own albums and create content. And so, yeah, I mean, it's a good life. Do I want to be Dane Cook? Well, not really. And not everybody does. I mean, some people are successful where you make, $150,000 a year and you're just famous enough that you can go out to restaurants and nobody will fucking come up to you and yell in your face or bother you while you're eating. I mean, that's the kind of quiet money. Like, a lot of these guys that are TV writers make a lot of money and nobody knows who they are. And they go out to eat with their wives or their kids and nobody comes up and bothers them. It depends what you want. What do you want? There's a lot of ways to go in this industry. You become a voiceover actor. I know guys that do voiceovers, put them in a completely another tax bracket. They do voiceovers for commercials and cartoons, big money. Also guys who just do commercials. They're just actors in commercials. Some guys are extremely successful at that. And that puts you in another category, and some guys want to be writers. They want to write sitcoms. They don't want to tour on the road. I mean, there's a lot of ways to go. Boom. You should figure out what it is you want to fucking do. And then find out guys that you like and respect to do that and find out all the information you can about how their career happened, how they got there, and just lay that template over your life and figure it out,
Boom. Yeah, that's gold. Figure out what you want, look at who is doing it very well, and find out their template. That's great.
Yeah, and apply it to your life.
Yeah.
Look, the harder you work, the luckier you get.
Boom.
And some guys like doing stand-up in L.A., but during the week they work on TV shows. They write for TV shows, and it's a very lucrative profession. And there's some guys who just do cruise ships. They make $3,000 to $5,000 a week. They don't got to worry about social media. They go on a cruise ship. They do a week on a cruise ship. They're done. What are you going to do? I mean, it depends what you want to do. What will make you happy? If you just want to make a living doing something you want to do, which is making people laugh, there are a lot of ways to go about it. Awesome. If you want to aspire to be something else, like a famous actor and stuff, then take some acting classes. That's what I did. I went to a creative and performing arts high school and I majored in drama. I was a professional magician when I was 13 and 14. I mean, literally, when I think about this, I get crazy because I knew what I wanted to do when I was like 8 or 9 years old. And that's really the only advantage I had is I figured it out early. And then everything I did up until that point was leading up to the fact that I would do stand-up when I was old enough to go to the comedy clubs. And as soon as I did. And, and thank God I did, because, like you said, when you were, and look, I got a little lost along the way, but the good news is we're way ahead of schedule. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I've been on, I did like 15 episodes of The King of Queens. I did like 4 episodes of Entourage, a couple episodes of ER.
Yeah, Two Broke Girls. Like, you've done a lot.
Yeah,
a little lost along the way.
I've done a lot of acting, and well, listen, I mean, not everybody can act, but you don't realize. You go, oh, like, I was in the movie Go, Coyote Ugly, 1 hour photo. That creates an alternate stream of income. You get paid for that stuff
yes.
So it's like, it's also, I have a pension fund because of all the years I've been acting. I also have, my health care because for the union. So I like having that. I like having the Screen Actors Guild because that's how it's like a union that looks after you,
Nice. Awesome. And this could tie into actually the first question, as we are in quarantine and you're talking about people finding different streams of income. And Sasha is actually asking, this is more from the skill development side. He says, I spend a lot of my time on the writing aspect of stand-up. Do you have any recommendations for what I can do off stage or at home that can help me improve in the performer aspect of comedy?
Yeah, well, here's a couple things. Writing. So I would say this is a great little exercise. Someone told me this one. I said, get up every day and read a newspaper from cover to cover. You read a newspaper from cover to cover. That way, you could almost talk about anything and know what's going on in the world today, which would help your writing. Also, I find when I'm writing, I'm also reading a lot. Like right now, I got 4 books going, just because you're looking for inspiration and stuff like that. And I find when I'm writing a lot, I also find myself reading a lot. I don't know what it is. I'm a voracious reader anyway, but like when I'm writing and I'll take a break and I walk and I just go read a couple chapters of this or a couple chapters here and try to find inspiration that way. I try to look for ideas that no one's talking about. But to address his question, he was talking about performance-wise. What can you do? And I think you just have to believe in yourself. I know that's easier said than done, but listen, you should learn to channel the nervousness, the nerves. You should learn to channel that, because the question was, what can I do at home to get better at performing?
Yes.
Yeah, look, we all got nerves. I mean, I use visualization a lot. I use meditation, visualize myself killing on stage. I visualize myself being very comfortable in front of an audience. If you do the work off stage, if you do the work off stage, that should translate into confidence on stage. So if you're doing the writing, you're doing that, then that should, look, they're just people. The worst thing that can happen is they're not going to fucking laugh. Big deal. I got news for you. That will happen all throughout your career. You will run across a fucking dumb audience that doesn't get it. And I used to say there were no such thing as a bad audience, but there are. So, but it's.
Are you rehearsing your material? Does that help with the performance side?
Well, I wouldn't say rehearsing, memorizing.
Oh, okay.
Memorizing. Like, I got a couple things here that I'm working on.
Oh, interesting.
And I go over it and I try to memorize it. I mean, look, I know how to present. Obviously when I think you've asked me 6 questions. We've been doing this for an hour now. I obviously have a gift of gab. I like to fucking run my cake hole, but I rehearse it so I know where I'm going with it. I know where the jokes are. I know where the beats are. It's like acting. Like, you want to memorize a script, and if you know the script, then when you take it on stage, then you can play with it because you know it so well. But people think, I used to watch Robin Williams, and when you're watching Robin, go, man, this guy's improvising his whole act. Not really. After you watch him like 6 nights in a row, you realize it's the same act. He's just doing it out of order. He's just bouncing off the audience and letting it take him in the direction it goes. And you can only do that when you know your act so well. You have to know it so well, because then you can go on stage and you can fucking play with it. People think, people watch a lot of Louis C.K. and they think, oh, he's just talking to an audience. I guarantee he's not talking to an audience. I guarantee you he's worked on those fucking bits, almost every single word of those bits with precision. Why do I say it like this as opposed to this? Believe me, I mean, it's only your fucking act. So you put so much thought into it, and the construction of an idea and a premise and a bit. And then you got to go up on stage and act like it's the first time you're saying it.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of where the thing is. But, yeah, I think you just got to know your material. Know it frontwards, sideways, backwards. Like I could do my act backwards, forwards, sideways, up and down. And when you can do that, then it will give you a freedom on stage. So you could then jump into the audience, do some crowd work, bounce back into a bit, go back over here, bounce back into a bit, do this bit out of order, let that bit lead you into this bit. And it would seem like, wow, this guy's just it seems like he's making this stuff up on the spot. But only because you know exactly where you're going.
Boom. Yes. All right. Great. Yeah, great answer. Great question as well, Sasha. The next one from Justin Williams. He says, hello, sir. Please tell us about stand-up records and how you got to deal with them. And he follows up with, I found your album on Spotify. How do those deals operate? Similar to Vimeo?
No. Well, when I do play you on Spotify, you do get paid. Again, creating an alternate stream of income.
Boom.
So it's not a lot of money, but it's the deal with stand-up records is I've been doing business with Dan Schlissel and stand-up records for 20 years. I produced my first album, and it happened by accident. I was planning on it anyway, and I worked at this club that was in Midvale, Utah, and they had an amazing recording system. And the guy said, yeah. He goes, pay me and I paid him like $75 for him to record all my shows and give me the DAT tapes. And then the next week, I was in Jacksonville, Florida, and I went to the phone book and looked up a guy who could transfer those DAT tapes into cassette tapes so I could listen to them and come up with some editing notes. And by the time I got done, and every day I would go over to that dude's house because he was a musician and he had a studio, and I think I paid him like $350 to help me cut the album. And that's what I did. I cut the album, put it together, and then I had a publicist who knew Dan Schlissel. She sent it to him. He said, "Yeah, I'd like to produce this." And then ever since then, we've just been doing business together. I like Dan because he's an independent label, because he's as honest and as fair as they come. Not a lot of people know about the recording industry because you think, oh, they're selling my CD for like $10. Well, that's not the way it works really. Because what you do is you wholesale a CD and DVDs. So you wholesale it to them. So maybe you sell it to the company for $6. And then, there's markup, and then you have a middleman, and then they get a taste. And then when it gets left right down to it, you and me and my partner, which is Dan Schlissel, split what's left over. So, but XM Sirius, there's a thing called Sound Exchange. Mm-hmm. Sound Exchange is a company that you should register with if you intend on doing albums, because Sound Exchange keeps track of every time you're played on the radio. And they may be playing you on the radio and you're unaware of it. And so there's money out there. So you register with Sound Exchange. You should then set up an account with Pandora Amp, because Pandora Amp is for creators like me. It's like you can leave messages. Hey, this is Jimmy Shubert. Thanks for listening to the Jimmy Shubert channel. Listen, just want to let you guys know I'll be in Atlantic City on these dates. And what happens is Pandora takes that ad, and then because you mentioned Atlantic City, they'll play that on all the Pandoras in Atlantic City to let people know you're coming. Hey, thanks for listening to my channel. Thanks for listening to my album. Hey, Jimmy Shubert, I got a new CD out, brand new CD out. And you can leave these little announcements for your fan base. And you should build your fan. Chad Daniels is a guy who's had tremendous success with Pandora Amp. You are a creator. You should be looking at all this stuff. Mm-hmm. You should be looking at empowering yourself, but also you should be doing the work on your act as well. But you should be investigating all these things. They're all out there. They're all tools that we get to use. So
Gorgeous. Yeah, and we've actually we're working on getting in contact with Chad to get him on here because he's been highly requested. So that's great. Pandora Amp. That's good. I hadn't heard of that, so I'll definitely look into that.
Yeah, definitely look at Pandora Amp, and they do online seminars to teach you how to use it.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah, it's a Pandora Amp playbook, and especially for a guy who doesn't really have a record deal, then you can take some of your recordings, and as long as you get the CPU number, and you can upload them and create content for your channel, and then you can leave messages for your fan base in between there. So it's really a great tool to have, and it's just, and if you once you set it up, you can put a link to it on your social media and on your put a link to it on your website and everything else.
Awesome, great, man. This turned into so much more than we were expecting here. So thank you, Jimmy. Next one, yes, this guy, Jay Frank. He was saying Jimmy with 4 exclamation marks. He's very excited, and we'll just do like 2 more here. Jimmy, great album. You're a legend. This is Jay Frank, by the way. Jimmy, great album. You're a legend. It was nice meeting you through Joe and Tanachi brother. Does that make the how is hanging out with Uncle Lar? How crazy is that, brother?
Oh, Uncle Lar.
Oh, Lair. Sorry.
Yeah, Uncle Lar is a Chicago comedian. He's a legend himself, Uncle Larry Reeb, right? And so, I love Uncle Larry. He's a great comedian and also a great guy. But and again, Uncle Larry has this thing, which is a great piece of advice, by the way. So I write a joke, and you go on stage, you do the joke, and the joke gets a laugh. I'll do it like Uncle Larry. And he goes, what you do is you take one word out until the joke doesn't get a laugh, and then you put that one word back in, and then you're done with the piece. You're done with the bit. When you write. So, as an example to get word efficient, so he writes a joke that gets a laugh, and then he slowly takes one word out, and one word out till it doesn't get a laugh, and he puts that word back in and leaves it though, so he knows it's word efficient. But yeah.
I guess.
Next question.
Great, great story there. We got a good nugget out of that. So let's go. Yeah, let's get into this final one here. And June saying, nice. I just had a light bulb moment. I become a slave to my transitions, only leading me in a specific order. Need to revisit how I've been writing to be able to bounce more in different directions. I'm a total rookie.
Well, you know what I do? Because I do 45 minutes to an hour on stage every night. And as a trick, what I do, June, is I lay little breadcrumbs, because I may mention something about what I'm getting ready to talk about in a previous bit, or I may mention something about 2 bits from there, just to leave me these little breadcrumbs, so it goes like, so I'm also to remind me that bit's coming up, to remind me that I'm getting ready to talk about something like that, to remind me. So I leave these little breadcrumbs in my act that, because 45 minutes to an hour is a long time, and so you want to have a way to remind yourself of that. And so built in my bits are these little nuggets to remind me that, oh yeah, that bit's coming up, or I have that bit coming up.
Very nice. So let's end with this, and maybe we could parlay it into like a question we had here about who is your favorite performer ever, and like what is your favorite joke ever, but then also what is your favorite comedy advice ever? Like what is something that you've gotten that just really helped you, or just advice that you've just never forgotten that's really become kind of a pillar of.
All right.
Yes.
All right. My favorite comedian ever is George Carlin.
Okay.
I said that before, but Carlin, the guy's got 21 albums, 14 HBO specials, 8 books. He was a content monster. I don't think anyone will ever come close to that. I think he's just a one. And back when Carlin was doing it, it was just enough to be a great comedian. You didn't have to do all this other shit. And also, if you look at some of his bits, baseball versus football, I mean, it's just so well crafted, and it's a long bit, and I'm just a huge George Carlin fan. It doesn't get any better than that. Favorite piece of advice? I said it before. Always work to the top of your intelligence. It'll separate you from the crowd. I always give my audiences credit for being intelligent. I always give my audience credit for being smart enough to get the joke. You know what I mean? And you know, yeah. If you work to the top of your intelligence, you will automatically separate yourself from the pack, because most people aren't thinking at that level. And number two, my favorite joke is only because I won a joke telling contest with this joke, and I won a Keurig at a golf outing with Kevin James and Ray Romano. They had this joke telling contest, and so a guy goes to the doctor. He's got a big gash in his upper thigh. And I says, Doc, I think I'm going to need some stitches. And the doctor says, yeah, it looks like it. Drop your pants. And the guy drops your pants. And the doctor goes, holy shit, you have brown balls. And he goes, Doc, just stitch me up here and let me, get back. He goes, all right, I'll stitch you up. But I'm telling you, you got brown balls. So the doctor stitches him up, puts a little gauze bandage on it. And the guy goes home and starts bitching to his wife. He goes, God damn it, honey. You keep this place looking like a pigsty. I slipped on the kid's roller skate. I cut my leg on the edge of the table. I had to get stitches. And the wife goes, listen, you son of a bitch. I am the mother of 11 of your children. I'm pregnant with the 12th. I don't even have time to wipe my ass. He goes, and that's another thing I want to talk to you about. So there you go. That's my favorite street joke. Yeah, I know, it's horrible.
It's just the build up and the pacing. It's awesome. Great way to end here. Jimmy Shubert, please let the Hot Breathverse know where they can check out your album and your special and just support you.
Everything's available and accessible through jimmyshubert.com. And that's Shubert. It's Shubert. It's spelled like the theater. There's no C in Shubert. Or you can go get my Zero Tolerance album on iTunes. Which, if you're a young up-and-coming comic, I think you should get it, because it's almost like a kind of a writing seminar.
Yes.
There really is. You should get it just because it gives you ideas of where you can go with bits that you're not even thinking about. And you can follow me on Twitter at Jimmy Shubert and Instagram at Jimmy Shubert. You can follow my Jimmy Shubert comedian page on Facebook. And if you go to my website, it'll take you all those places. But yeah, go get my album. It's my fourth album. I'm really proud of it. I think it's hilariously funny. It's 57 minutes of nonstop bang, bang, bang. Boom. Old school setups, punchlines, callbacks. That's just the way it is. That's just how we do. And so if people anyway, thanks for having me on, man.
Yes,
I appreciate it.
Yes,
and I hope that I hope you guys got something out of it. The people listen, I hope you got a little something out of it. And so everybody, stay safe during the quarantine and enjoy your life, and good luck with your careers. Hot breath. You're not going to ask me You're not going to ask me the questions like James Lipton on the Actor Studio. No, I'm kidding.
What's your favorite swear word, Mr. Schubert?
Motherfucker.
All right.
Bro. All right. Peace out.
Peace out, Jimmy. Appreciate it, buddy. Hot Breath the Verse. Go support Jimmy Shubert. Everything will be linked in the show notes.